Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:06 this Friday morning in the nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. And, well, he just absolutely knocked it out of the park. I've never seen a more presidential address to the nation. What a big boy press conference that was. The Democrats
the big boys showed up.
They are so screwed, Patrice. The Democrats, it's like, well, okay, finally we can actually do something, get rid of him. And then he gave just a barely coherent enough performance to make it nearly impossible for the Democrats to get rid of him off the ticket. They are high-fiving each other at the Trump campaign headquarters right now after last night. They can't even do this right. It's going to be fascinating to watch the fallout. Listen, we're going to give you all the details. If you didn't see the big boy press conference, we'll give you highlights of it coming up in a bit and our analysis. And by the way, no, it was he did a great job. No, he was barely dragged across the finish line, and now they want to give him a gold medal. That's not how these things work. But it's okay. We're here for it. Also, Patrice, coming up at 6:35, Gabe Kaminsky. He was a reporter on the social media censorship story that brought Ben Shapiro to Congress the other day. I know everybody, the fireworks had to do with the ridiculous Eric Swalwell questioning, but the real story behind that testimony of Ben Shapiro is about how these organizations are trying to silence conservative media. Gabe Kaminsky will bring the receipts on that. 8:05, Sean Spicer, who's done a few of his own big boy press conferences, and then 8:35, Emily Miller on the Alec Baldwin trial. So that's Patrice Onwuka. Say it, Patrice. Say it. We're waiting for it.
Happy Friday, everybody.
It sure as hell is a Friday. It is going to rain today, though. But that's going to bring the temperatures down a bit, too. It's going to be a little cool.
And make the grass green again. Oh, my goodness. I don't know about your lawn, Larry. Unless you have a sprinkler system.
Oh, no, it looks like hay out there. It looks like I'm growing hay. I gave a speech for Young America's Foundation last night in Reston to some high school leadership conference, which was great. Got to see Governor Scott Walker as he's about to leave for his beloved state of Wisconsin for that Republican convention. And I kid you not, I felt like I was in a sauna by the time I got off the stage from the speech. It was so, and in the Sheraton in Reston has fine air conditioning, but you turn stage lights on, and you're wearing a jacket, and just with the built-in water vapor in the air and the humidity and the heat, it's just the sauna is not the right word. Steam room. That's the right word. I felt like my glasses were fogging up during the speech. It's so crazy. Because
you're overwhelmed with your love for America, and you're passing it on to the next generation.
That's right. Young Americans for Freedom, Young American Foundation. I did say it's funny because before me, the person from YAF was talking to the high school kids who are either going to college campuses or they're finishing their senior year in high school, and they're saying, and you work with us and we'll help you with a charter of your campus chapter, and we'll give you the tools to fight for your right to liberty, fight for your rights for freedom, fight for all of your rights. And I was like, when I was your age, we were fighting for our right to party. We were, so the Beastie Boys were the people that we were getting our tools from, and now you guys you have to fight for your right to free speech on campus, and you have to fight for your right to acknowledge that men are men and women are women. It's sad.
A different world.
It is, but as I mentioned, I've got to hang out with Governor Walker and get some insight from him about this Republican convention in Wisconsin, and of course, a big portion of this the convention is going to be about winning over the good people of the Badger State. Wisconsin is one of those three states. Here's how the map is looking, you guys.
Okay.
You look at the states that Trump lost last time that he should have and really wants to win, and are really the easiest to win from his perspective because he's either won them before or they've traditionally often moved to the Republican column. You start with Georgia. Right. Yeah. And right now, Georgia, he's up by 10 points, I think, in Georgia. And they've locked down a lot of the voting rules that screwed us over in 2020. I think Georgia's looking strong. Same with, and they keep saying North Carolina's a bully. He won North Carolina last time, even though he ended up not prevailing in the electoral vote for the presidency, but he did win North Carolina. I think he's got North Carolina in the bag as well.
Okay.
Arizona, I think, is back in the Republican column, too. In fact, ironically, Kari Lake losing the governorship and having to do with Katie Hobbs as their governor for the last 2 years solidifies Republican support in that state. And then Nevada is often sort of on the bubble, and the corrupt Harry Reid union machine often pushes Nevada back over to the Democrats. But right now, with the Republican governor who won in 2022, which is one of the unspoken victories of the midterms in 22, Nevada is looking super strong for Trump as well. So Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, you put those in Trump's column. And now the map is such that if Biden loses either Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin, it's over.
Wow.
Okay?
That's
He's got to do a
huge.
clean sweep of those states. And having the convention in Wisconsin is a major deal in terms of making the case right there in the Badger State to Wisconsinites that the Republican ticket is the way to go. So you would think that so much of the content on stage is going to be about convincing Wisconsin and people in the Midwest Rust Belt. But I got to tell you, Patrice, we're learning that there's going to be a big push on the stage for the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of
wow.
discussion right now, including this announcement. Hung Kao, the Republican nominee for Senate running against Tim Kaine, will be making a main stage appearance and speech.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It is great for Hung Kao and huge for the signal from President Trump's campaign that Virginia is a major priority for them.
Absolutely. I would love to see Real Clear Politics update their top battlegrounds to put Virginia in there. And by the way, all the battleground states you've referenced, Real Clear Politics has everyone in the Trump camp right now, including Michigan, by a little bit over half a point. So it's very interesting. I mean, listen, folks, that doesn't mean conservatives need to sit on their laurels. They do need to get out. But it's interesting that Virginia is now so in play, which gives a lot of credence to whether or not we might see another big name Virginia elected official take the stage next week. Someone that you have been talking about potentially being a very good pick to sit on the ticket next to President Trump.
The only bigger name than Hung Kao, who's running for Senate, would have to be one of the top three statewide officials who are Republicans. That would be Attorney General Jason Miyares, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, or Governor Glenn Youngkin.
I mean, all three great, but I think we all know that
I'm being
governor,
coy.
I know. And actually, Byron York in today's Washington Examiner, I just saw it. He's making a case for Governor Youngkin being the VP ticket.
A lot of people are. In fact, a lot of people said, "Oh, Hung Kao speaking, that's great, but why not have Governor Youngkin?" And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, maybe he will be giving a speech on the stage, accepting the nomination for vice president." Governor Youngkin did a victory lap around the country yesterday, celebrating the fact that they have just been named, Virginia has, the top state for business in America. America's top
great.
state for business 2024 is the Commonwealth of Virginia. They also finished in the top half of every top 10 category for competitiveness. Virginia has made the turnaround that Glenn Youngkin promised 3 years ago. He appeared on CNBC to sort of celebrate that in an appearance from Virginia Beach, and that would be a story. Also, people talk about how Donald Trump does respect and admire wealthy, successful businessmen. That means Doug Burgum, and it means Glenn Youngkin of the names that are being mentioned on his list. Honestly, the one thing everybody keeps coming back with and saying, nah, this is why it can't be Youngkin, this is why it can't be Youngkin, because he's taller than Donald Trump.
Yeah,
that's
they
the
make
big
that
deal.
same argument. I think maybe about Burgum too. But here's what's so interesting.
Is Burgum taller than Trump?
Isn't he pretty tall or close to it? Something like that.
Maybe.
So, I mean, from a policy standpoint, Virginia, the turnaround in Virginia under Governor Youngkin has been tremendous. And it's a leader and shows that once a blue state can actually become purple and then can be potentially flipped to red. I give also a lot of credit to Governor Youngkin for his voter registration and get out the vote efforts, really targeting Republicans and making... frankly, trying to knock a big old hole in the Northern Virginia blue wall of voters. Because remember, those are all government voters and contractors who live in Northern Virginia and really have a strong lock on the politics. But maybe that's breaking, and that's important.
I've got one more thought about Virginia and the running mate issue and the convention in just a sec. We do got to stop in.
Morning of the Chris Plante Show. The Democrat Party's brain trust is goose-stepping toward the future, and they don't need Joe Biden's little brain. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
All right, couple things here. First, to finish things up on the speculation about Youngkin and Virginia. First of all, Youngkin's going through a really positive news cycle right now, including, as I just mentioned, Virginia finishing in the top 5 or top half of the top 10 in so many categories right now, including number 1 for business. That's a big deal. Number 2, I mentioned, Trump can't afford to lose Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. If you put Virginia in play, right now Biden's leading in Virginia by 2 points based on the Real Clear Politics average of polls. You put Virginia in play and you make the Biden campaign defend Virginia and spend money in Virginia and spend time in Virginia and maybe even flip it. If you win Virginia, it's over for Biden.
Wow.
That's just it. It's completely over. Even if Biden wins Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, you lose Virginia, your map is just shattered, right? So in terms of a path for victory, that's a big deal. Number 2, if the criteria is picking somebody who is not taller than Trump, then it's a shoo-in. Marco Rubio wins. That's just it's over. It's Rubio.
I don't think that's the criteria.
Number 3, a lot of people are saying, well, it can't be Youngkin because Youngkin hasn't been fully supportive of Trump. Now, first of all, I followed his gubernatorial campaign very closely in 2021. It is true that he did not have Trump come up and campaign with him in 2021. All right. But he never said anything negative about Donald Trump that entire race. Winsome Sears did, but Glenn Youngkin did not.
Yeah,
Glenn Youngkin always played it very smart and very, listen, I think the president was a great president, but this race is about me and about Virginia. And he kept deflecting. But this whole idea that he's got to be, 1,000% MAGA. Guys, Trump picked Pence to be his running mate.
Yeah.
Pence had endorsed Ted Cruz. Like 2 months before he was on the ticket with Trump, he had endorsed Ted Cruz and campaigned with Cruz in May for the primary in Indiana. So you guys sell Donald Trump way too short on this loyalty thing. He had Ken Cuccinelli working in his administration. Ken Cuccinelli led the floor fight at the convention in Cleveland to try to get Trump off the ticket. Trump is actually very less concerned about this blind loyalty thing than Trump supporters are. It's actually it's very much in keeping for Donald Trump to bring somebody in to work closely with him who isn't, somebody who is wearing a MAGA hat and screaming at a rally. That's actually very much consistent with his past decisions.
Well, and frankly, I think this idea that it has to be a loyalist often is parroted by the left, by the media pundits and media leaders on the left who feel like the only thing that President Trump cares about is that blind allegiance. I think they're wrong, and so you laid out a really good case for Governor Youngkin. I mean, I think that he also by not pushing President Trump away, but also saying, hey, I can run on my own merits. I don't need necessarily President Trump to be with me on the stage everywhere. He created a roadmap for other Republicans to run in the same way, and he certainly should be a welcoming face to the never Trumpers who are now increasingly feeling like they have no options. Well, why not support the the vice presidential pick who you probably already like, and you've seen him fighting for a lot of important causes like against the trans issue and particularly in schools.
Yeah, you're right, and he speaks. He is very appealing to suburban women and to moms. He speaks the language about what's going on in our schools, that kind of stuff as well. And Trump does respect businessmen. By the way, I'm not making the case that it's going to be Youngkin. I'm just telling you why you shouldn't count him out at this point. A couple of other things, though, of note as we play the running mate sweepstakes right now. It has been announced that Donald Trump Jr. will announce the running mate.
Yes,
at the
I saw
convention. Donald Trump Jr. has been, it appears, very high on J.D. Vance.
Yes, that's what I understand.
You can connect those dots however you'd like, but the fact that Donald Trump Jr. is announcing the running mate, and Donald Trump Jr. seems to not make a secret about the fact that Vance is his choice. And finally, and this is, however, at the same time, there was a report out that Trump doesn't like men with beards.
Ah. Yeah, but does
saying.
that mean that he's not going to keep? I mean, his John Jr. wears a beard.
I
mean, come on.
I know.
I think that's a little
fan,
bit.
Not a big fan of the beard. I'm just telling you all the stories that are out there.
You're spilling the tea, Larry. We appreciate it.
One last one, because everyone thinks Burgum is very hot. What's going to be? What are Democrats going to run on more than any other issue, Patrice, in 2020? Abortion. That's correct. And Donald Trump is trying to thread the needle on abortion. Donald Trump has said, I'm not pushing for anything in this election on abortion. Roe v. Wade is gone, and now it's up to the states.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Doug Burgum, as governor of North Dakota, has signed into law quite possibly one of the most restrictive bans on abortion, which I think is fine. But if the Democrats want to make abortion the issue, and Doug Burgum,
that's an easy target,
just signed into a law that almost bans abortion outright in North Dakota, that gives the Democrats yet another target to go after on that issue that they are so hot on. So there you go. These are all the things that are in play right now and being juggled about. And now we just wait and see, because like whether Joe Biden stays on the ticket or now, which is one man's decision, Joe Biden's and no one else's, who Donald Trump picks to be his running mate is also one man's decision, and we will wait for that man to announce it. Apparently, we are told, based on the last reports, by the way, that he has not made his decision yet. He still
that doesn't surprise me. This is going to be Apprentice style. You know, the last two candidates. Who is it going to be? The last two contestants. I just got to say,
I love that show so much. That would be so
it was
great
fabulous,
if they brought
by the
Apprentice
way.
back just for the VP pick.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for joining us here on this Friday, the 12th day of July, as we sort of head into the weekend that will lead us to the Republican convention. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, in 2016, the weekend leading into the Republican convention, that Friday is when Donald Trump announced on Twitter that his running mate would be Mike Pence, and then they appeared together at a Saturday event. All the speculation that we just engaged in as to who that running mate could be, it could be answered today. Or he could wait and deal with it at the convention itself. Or, as you said, a final episode of Apprentice.
I think turn the convention speech into that final episode of convention of
Apprentice.
Of the show.
Do it all live on stage. It'd be amazing.
Just bring them all up on stage.
Right.
That's what Don Jr. can do. His speech can literally be just the setup for the show. You have a big table. You have President Trump at the...
And Ivanka comes in and makes an appearance.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Talk about most watched moment in political history. It
is so despicable. Before Donald Trump... before Donald Trump became president, CNBC would play Apprentice reruns on a block, 3 hours a night. It was great. I loved Apprentice.
Absolutely.
And when he became president, they decided to pull all those reruns. I don't think you can find the reruns anymore. It's so stupid. NBC could be making a mint with those, but they're not interested in making money. They're interested in their political agenda.
Yeah.
All right. So we saw this story yesterday. Comes from Fort Liberty, it used to be called Fort Bragg, in North Carolina. There were some, I'm assuming the people who leaked these photos on social media were soldiers at Fort Liberty, where they were sitting for a briefing on terrorist groups. And they had a PowerPoint presentation, and on one of the slides it talked about ISIS and Middle East terrorism and all that stuff. And then the next slide, illustrating terrorist groups, had pro-life organizations like National Right to Life.
Oh, goodness.
That was presented as a domestic terror group. The slide photographed, and I'm reading now from the write-up at the Washington Examiner. Mm-hmm. The a presentation slide photographed by an anonymous person in the briefing room on Wednesday and published on social media by a pseudonymous account highlights common tactics used by anti-abortion activists as possibly dangerous, including demonstrations and protests. Let's just be clear, those protests and demonstration often involve praying. Truth display. A truth display is a giant blown-up photograph of the end result of an abortion.
Yes.
Picketing, which, again, peaceful picketing, and
First
sidewalk
Amendment right.
sidewalk counseling.
Oh, goodness.
You know, like standing on the sidewalk and counseling a pregnant woman in crisis before she goes and kills the unborn child. Again, this is under the heading terrorist groups. And this is an official briefing at a U.S. Army Fort Liberty in North Carolina.
You know, it's so interesting. I'm reading down in some more of this reporting. One of the organizations that was listed there, Larry, Operation Rescue, which is well known. They pretty much go out and allow individuals to protest. The founder here, Troy Newman, or the president, he told the Washington Examiner that the slides appear to be between 10 and 15 years old. So that tells us that this is not just a Biden administration issue. This predates Biden and I think would predate Trump. So probably going back to the Obama era, these slides, and they've been repurposed from similar presentations that the FBI has given based on their Freedom of Information Act requests. So this Operation Rescue has been digging into these types of training presentations before and seeing that this is a consistent threat. They've been positioned as a threat for now 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
This is insidious.
In the mid-'90s, there were a couple of incidents. There was a bombing of an abortion mill, and there was the murder of an abortion doctor, abortion practitionist.
Right.
They found the guy who did it. They arrested the guy who did it. They convicted the guy who did it.
Yeah.
And he was affiliated with one of the pro-life groups. And so now they've determined that, well, that means pro-life groups are terrorist groups. Let me just be clear. If by that calculation, if that's how they're reaching this conclusion, then every single environmental group is linked to the Unabomber. All right?
Absolutely.
The Unabomber was carrying out his terrorist activity, threats and bomb-making activity in the name of the exact same environmental causes that every single, that AOC embraces for the Green New Deal. So if you want to play that game, we certainly can. We saw this, like I said, yesterday morning before we went on the air, and as often is the case, when we see things on social media, it would be irresponsible for us to go to air with it until it's investigated fully. And in just 24 hours, Fort Liberty has actually put out an official response to this. They say, I'll quote this, after conducting a commander's inquiry, we determined that the slides presented on social media were not vetted by the appropriate approval authorities, don't reflect the views of the 18th Airborne Corps in Fort Liberty, U.S. Army, or the Department of Defense. Yeah, you know what? I think they do reflect the views of the Department of Defense these days. The slides were developed by a local garrison employee to train soldiers manning access control points at Fort Liberty. These slides will no longer be used, and all future training products will be reviewed to ensure they align with the current DoD anti-terrorism guidance. I don't think that's quite good enough. I think this deserves a little bit further inquiry. Yeah, we're supposed to take their word for it. Yeah, thank you. Who's been fired? Who's been fired?
Yeah. Because this wasn't the first training where these were probably used. So we need to go back to as far back as possible to find out how many people have overseen this training and seen this slide and said nothing about it.
Right.
This is absolutely not good enough. And, thank goodness that there are brave Americans willing to expose what's going on, and that we have platforms where you can anonymously put the information out there so that what's happening behind closed doors by our government, by the way, is being exposed. I would love to have seen Antifa listed there, because if you want to talk about a terrorist group that is active and goes from issue to issue, from BLM to climate to anti-Semitism rallies, pro-Hamas rallies, why isn't their logo top, front, and center?
Yeah, Patrice, thank you. And I just want to echo one other thing you said. Is like, how many times has this briefing been done without anybody stepping forward? That's what's even more insidious and evil about what they did here, is that they know that captive audience sitting in that briefing, they're there under orders. They're in the military. They surrender much of their freedoms and liberties for the sake of being in the military. There may have been, and I assure you there were, many good pro-life patriotic Americans wearing the uniform in those briefings who hated what they saw, and they weren't allowed to step up and say anything about it. And that's disgusting, and we deserve better. So yesterday was the last day of the NATO summit here in Washington, D.C. That means you get your roads back. It also means, sadly, we have to say goodbye to a woman who has fast become our favorite foreign leader. That would be the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni. You remember
style.
She does have style. Well, she's Italian, of course. She's got class. She's very, very compassionate, I think, and
animated. She's
and
fun.
smooth. Yeah. Well, you'll last remember her as the one who subtly but deliberately grabbed a wandering Joe Biden from the countryside as he started to go over and wanting to talk to a paratrooper who was doing a demonstration, and she very gracefully guided the president back to the group, and she was hosting. She was playing host to the G7 summit. So she knows a thing or two about playing host to a bunch of world leaders.
Yes.
But now she's not the host. Joe Biden's the host. And yesterday, as all the world leaders were waiting for Joe Biden to grace them with their presence, he had to get to a place that was less than a mile from the White House. At the time that the final day of the conference was supposed to begin, he still had not left the White House in his motorcade.
Oh,
and so,
I know why.
Why?
Color people time. CP time.
Don't drag me into this, Patrice.
It's a joke.
He was raised in a black church, but
and a Cuban household, a Spanish household.
So,
excuse me.
So they're all standing around waiting. All these these are the prime ministers of the NATO countries who are sitting there saying, "Can we start our session, please?" And Biden still hasn't left the White House yet. And so she's caught on camera, and you're right, animated is the word for it, or rubber-faced. She was not putting her diplomatic sort of veneer on to cover what her inner monologue was. She was caught, looking at her watch, and she wasn't wearing a watch, but she's like going and doing that thing. And then she rolls her eyes in what can only be described as the most epic eye roll you have ever seen from a foreign leader. She is so over Joe Biden and his antics, and this is going to become a meme forever. I love these. If you haven't seen the pictures or video, we'll put it out on social media for you at WMAL, but it's worth a look.
Oh, absolutely. This lady, she's becoming a fast international treasure. But this was not even the only moment that she had, cringeworthy moment with, of the day yesterday. Also, she was greeting President Biden when he finally arrived. I guess things started 40 minutes late. And he leans in to kiss her. But it's if you're a woman and you've ever been approached by an older gentleman who, is probably going to give you a kiss on the cheek and then maybe another one on the other cheek, but lingers in your face and in your space too long.
Yeah.
That is when you do the lean back. And you lean back to indicate, no, sir, before I put up my pepper spray, please step back from me. Joe Biden is leaning in like he's going in for, I don't know, the full mouth.
Yeah.
What he's leading. So she is bending almost 45.
Oh, she looks like
degrees
she's doing a limbo competition in the Caribbean.
Yes.
She is bent back at the waist, so far back away from this doddering, drooling, decrepit old man who is trying to go in for the kill. There's history here. If you Google Biden kiss Maloney, there's 2 different occasions when Biden has met the prime minister, who, by the way, is a young, attractive woman.
Yeah.
And Biden has a thing. If you look, there are 2 different occasions, one in Italy and one at the White House, where upon greeting Prime Minister Maloney, he has leaned over and kissed her on the hair. Not a European chic kiss, not the air kiss. He goes in and makes physical contact with his mouth on her head, her hair, which is just a bizarre, gross thing for anyone to do, let alone the head of state to another head of state. So I think Georgia had enough of this. And so she just said, you are not going to get my hair again. I'm still, disinfecting that part of my hair from the last time I saw you.
Because it is totally inappropriate, Larry. it is
so
wrong.
gross.
Listen, any man who does that to me, other than my husband and maybe my dad, listen, you better believe I'm going to hit you, because that is totally you are in my space. You are smelling my hair. How dare you? Like, what are you going to try to do next is the thing. And she is absolutely, if she cold cuts him again, I don't be surprised, folks, and don't get upset. Don't clutch your pearls, media, if she cold cuts him, because he is doing what I think a lot happens very often, and she's having a Me Too moment, and she's taking her power.
Yeah, don't mess with her. Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy. By the way, long story short, the session was supposed to begin at 10 o'clock, and as she was eye-rolling and checking her non-existent watch, she was right to do so. They finally got there at 10:40, and he's the host. He's the host of this event. It's yet another embarrassment on the world stage. It's 5:53.